I think it's a disgrace that the World Cup is being held in Qatar, and it was a disgrace that it was held in Russia as well.
Yeah, so as Jeff mentioned, I have strong views on the European Super League, and I think everybody should have strong views on the European Super League. I mean, everybody does, but most people are wrong. So I think supporting the European Super League is morally the right thing to do and the necessary thing to do. And I think the quick death of the European Super League, death by public lynching, should terrify everyone, even if you've never watched and never intend to watch a football match in your life.
The public reaction, for those of you who don't remember, although this was the only story in the news for days, was similar to what you would assume political debates are like in North Korea. There was a complete consensus against it. I remember watching panels on television with 5 panelists, everybody speaking out against it and saying pretty much the exact same thing. The Prime Minister said at the time that we will stop this by any means necessary, which is the kind of language you don't hear him or any other Prime Minister use when talking about crime or terrorism, or indeed the decision to host the World Cup in Russia and then in Qatar. The public outrage was in condemnation of football club owners allegedly putting profit over people, but who in reality, they more often than not, they hemorrhage money to keep clubs afloat, and this was in defense, ironically, of UEFA, which is second in corruption only to the organization that made the aforementioned decisions on the World Cup. So the reason I think everybody should be terrified by the public reaction is because of what it says of what the sentiment is when it comes to property rights. And the right to property derives directly from your right to your own life. You acquire property directly by producing it, or you produce it and then and produce something of value to others, and then trade it for money with which you buy other property. So in essence, the right to your property is your right to the time you spend, the time out of your life that you spend acquiring it. Now, you wouldn't typically, if somebody opened a bakery in your neighborhood and that was very popular, people would not be saying that the customers have a right to the baked goods belong to the customers, right? As they say that football belongs to the fans. Now there is no bakery without the customers, just like there is no football without the fans. But that doesn't give you the right to the product of someone else's labor. And yeah, morally, that right should be universally accepted and applied, whether it's the clothes you're wearing, the house you live in, the bakery you opened, or if you've actually created so much value for others that you've amassed billions and are able to buy a football club, that also is still a right of yours that should be respected and protected. Now, I do want to say, in the context of football clubs, this is a problem that is more a fundamental political problem. But I was watching some of the match between Benfica and Paris Saint-Germain a few days ago, and the shirts of one team says Emirates on it and the other says Qatar. I don't think that should be allowed, because essentially it is governments that oppress their people allowed to buy into our country, but that shouldn't be allowed in football any more than it should be allowed in when it comes to prime central London real estate or any other aspect of our economy. So I'll leave it there. So I wanted to address the first person who spoke. he left, but he was very passionate about football, which is something we share, and everything else he said I completely disagree with, and I think actually was, a counterpoint to my point about property rights, because he's against renaming stadiums after sponsors, he's against sponsorships on shirts. Well, he's not against the result of all that, which is it brings in money and then the club can compete. So, be against it, fine. You put up that money and then don't promote your products or services which made it possible for you to fund that. The people who oppose VAR, I don't even know where to start. It's actually not a coincidence that people who are against property rights are also against, want to make life easier for cheaters in football. I think VAR is great. It's great that people can't get away with cheating as easily as they could in the past. They can still, to some extent, but not as easily. And just on the World Cup, can I swear? I'm not going to swear. I think it's a disgrace that the World Cup is being held in Qatar, and it was a disgrace that it was held in Russia as well. So the gentleman at the back mentioned an Al Jazeera documentary called The Men Who Sell Football. I haven't seen it, but Al Jazeera is the Qatari government propaganda channel. They would know the men who sell football because they bought it. And Stefan, you said we should be open and understanding when it comes to the World Cup in Qatar. I would give that advice to the Qatari government. They should be open and understanding their laws, or that they should not be considered a legitimate country, let alone be hosting an international competition. In terms of the European Super League and whether it would get old to see the same matches over and over again, I mean, that's a valid question, and that's a question for the people who are putting up the money. I mean, like any investment, you consider the factors that you're aware of and the variables, and you invest based on what you think would happen. I signed into Wi-Fi in Hudson Yards in New York a few months ago, and I haven't gotten myself off the marketing email list. A few days ago, I got an email saying they're going to show Real Madrid versus Barcelona on a big screen. I haven't gotten any email saying they're going to show Racing Santander versus Osasuna or something like that. So I think people do prefer to watch these big games, but that's an investment decision of the people who are investing. I love how many people here actually go see Maccabi Tel Aviv. Yes, the tickets are affordable, but then we got eliminated in the Conference League playoffs. So you have bigger stadiums, you have more expensive tickets. Your club is ultimately going to be more successful.
Sad state of affairs that America is reaching, where each side now seems to be advocating throwing their political opponents in jail